Part 1. My name's Lila Mae Porter. Most folks in Elk Ridge, Wyoming shorten it to LM, or Grandma Lila. I'm 77, run on lists, and don't buy drama by the yard. Here's the straight ledger of how a man's sleep tonic became the chain that pulled him into court. I came up in '48 on a wind-scoured ranch north of Casper. Dad, Clyde, kept cattle, cash, and secrets. Mom, Faye, kept suppers hot till pneumonia took her in the winter of '56. After that, the stove went quiet and the bottle got busy. Nights, he brought a warm glass to my bed. Drink up, little May. Keeps the bad dreams away. Milk didn't smell like that. Bitter, chemical, wrong. Sleep arrived like a trapdoor. Mornings were missing pages. School sat 5 dusty miles off. Miss Rowan noticed bruises that didn't match fence posts and sent a note home I never delivered. Neighbors waved from their porches and minded their fences. Out here we leave distance between houses and questions. By 9 I knew the hiding places. Pantry top shelf, brown vial with a rubber stopper, bread box with a false bottom, a brass key. Under his bedboard, rolled bills and a paper with Mom's name. Corners gone soft from thumb rubs. On nights I gagged the drink back up. He set me in the root cellar to cool off with kerosene and potatoes. On nights I kept it down. The latch stayed loose and he called me good girl. Same coin, different sides. Spring of '61 he shifted from temper to planning. Doctor in Thermopolis, he said, pouring a taller glass, for the road. My legs went slack before we left the county. He didn't point the truck toward any doctor. He slid west along the river where cottonwoods hide sounds. At the sharp bend by the cut bank, he missed how I had my hand on the latch. I popped the door, hit dirt and sage, and rolled through brush into black. I woke to a dog barking and a woman with flour on her apron. Ruth Calder, she said, hauling me upright. You're coming inside. 2 rooms tucked in the cottonwoods near the gray bull. She washed gravel out of my cuts, wrapped ribs tight, poured me plain water, and let me stack facts. The glass, the cellar, the blank spots where hours should be. She didn't gasp. She pulled a pencil and a feed ledger. What he gives you, where he keeps it, anyone who'll vouch for your face, anyone who owes me a favor, she said. She burned the torn dress in a barrel and handed me a barn coat that smelled of sun. 2 days later, Clyde's pickup prowled the river road. He knocked. Ruth kept the door shut. Haven't seen any girl, she said, voice like a shovel. The dog pressed her leg and growled low, and he left tire ruts and nothing else. Ruth's plan wasn't movie fancy. It was county practical. You don't run first, she said, tapping the ledger. You document, then move. We needed proof that travels, caps, labels, dates, so we went back on a Sunday when Clyde would be parading at church in his only suit. Back latch, butter knife, in. The house smelled like damp wool and old coffee. I took the stool, reached the brown vial, and slid it into a mason jar. Ruth printed the date in block letters across masking tape and stuck it to the glass. I took Mom's photograph from under the bedboard. Ruth wiped knobs back to their exact notches. Out we went. No footprints on the kitchen floor. Next stop, the traveling clinic at the feedlot. Nurse practitioner Vaughn, born on a ranch, schooled in town, didn't blink. Ruth set the jar on the table. No gossip, she said. Vaughn drew blood, took swabs, sealed the jar in a cooler, and slapped chain of custody stickers on it. White with a red stripe and a line for signatures you don't forget. If it's what I think, it's controlled, she said. Let the lab do the talking. Ruth called one more name. Justice of the Peace Hal Merrick, farm law judge with sunburned ears. He didn't ask for my life story. He read Vaughn's affidavit, scratched his pen across a temporary protection order, and wrote an emergency guardianship naming Ruth until the hearing. "You stay put," he told me. "We move a mountain with paperwork and time." Clyde didn't wait on court. That night, he jimmied the back door, tested windows. Ruth had already slid nails into the sash tracks. He drifted toward the barn. The dog went hot. The floodlight snapped on. He drove off. A deputy rolled by later, brim tipped. "We're watching," he said. The lab called within the week. Not cough syrup, veterinary sedative cut with kitchen junk, strong enough to hold a bull. Vaughn sent papers to the sheriff, the judge, and, because Ruth insisted, the county attorney who hated after-5 calls but liked front-page credit. No raids. A hearing. Tuesday in June, courthouse smelling like mop water and dust. Merrick's courtroom was tidy. No whispering. No leaning. Vaughn testified with charts. The lab tech piped in by phone. I said 12 sentences, all nouns and verbs. Ruth placed the jar, the photo, and a single-page list of dates on the clerk's table. Clyde tried to grin through it. Girl's dramatic. Poor nerves. I was soothing. The county attorney slid him the lab result and a mail order receipt from a Gillette vet supply with Clyde's signature. Merrick's gavel hit like a corral gate. Search granted. Deputies served the warrant that afternoon. Pantry. Fresh dust ring where a vial had sat. Bread box. False bottom with more. Cellar. Rope. A cot. A blanket whose fibers matched my shirt. Item numbers. Signatures. Zip bags. They left with boxes and no questions. Clyde ran 2 days later. A trooper stopped him weaving near Worland and found syringes in the glove box and a pocket ledger with dates that mirrored mine. Paper keeps better than memory. Trial moved fast for Wyoming. The state kept to what it could prove. Unlawful administration of a controlled substance to a minor, unlawful restraint, assault. No need to try my nightmares on a jury. They had receipts. The vet who sold him bottles lost his license pretending not to know. The jury took 4 hours. The judge took longer, stacking words. Custody orders made permanent, sentence long enough to outlast his stories, the ranch sold to pay fines and the back taxes he'd ignored while playing doctor. Ruth didn't cheer. She washed 2 fish knives, copied the orders, and drove me to enroll in school under my mother's maiden name. 3 jobs, she said. Eat regular, learn steady, keep records. Let the state do the hunting. Years stacked like hay. I poured coffee at the diner mornings and drilled geometry at night. GED early, bus to Laramie with a duffel and the photograph. Numbers treated me honest. Bookkeeping became office manager, and an office is a safe house if you love columns that balance and lies that don't. Clyde stayed where doors clang. Rumor said he found the Lord and misplaced him whenever parole neared. I didn't attend hearings. The county attorney mailed one-liners. Denied, continued, revoked. I filed behind the lab sheet in a folder stamped state and never read twice. Ruth aged like fence cedar. Slow, then all at once. She died in 97 with dough rising under a towel and a list on the counter. I kept her dog till he slept and didn't wake. I bought a squat duplex in Elk Ridge and married nobody. I hauled other people's kids through hot lunches, job forms, and DMV lines. Routine turns out to be mercy when your childhood wasn't. Decades later, a podcaster called wanting a human angle. I said, You want a headline? Paper beats speeches. I mailed 3 copies: the order, the lab report, the receipt. She found a different tragedy to monetize. Last year, the Department of Corrections sent a thin letter. Clyde died on a Wednesday. No kin claimed him. The property list made me stop. Photograph. Woman. Edges worn. He'd kept the twin of Mom's picture, the one I didn't know he had. I walked to the river, tore the letter into neat strips, and let the current carry them past the cottonwoods. People ask what to do when a house turns mean. I hand them a 3x5 I keep behind my driver's license. Don't argue at midnight. Lights on, door open, neighbors in. Save samples, date everything, cap tight. Don't narrate, document. Learn names: the nurse who knows the form, the clerk who stamps clean, the judge who signs straight. Tell it like a receipt. What, when, where, who. Skip adjectives. Let systems pull weight. Your job is to endure and write it down. I live 2 blocks off Main, South Unit, chain-oiled quiet, porch chair facing east. Pantry holds beans, flour, and a neat row of clean, empty jars. Some evenings, a high school girl lands on my steps with a problem that isn't algebra. I brew coffee in a dented percolator, slide her a pen and an index card, and say, "Write the dates. We'll move the mountain the slow way." Part 2. The papers didn't end the story. They just put it in a drawer. Years later, somebody tried to pry it open. It started with a flyer in the Elk Ridge grocery window. Restoration night. Testimony from a changed man. The photo was Clyde at 50, cropped from a prison baptism article. The church sat 2 towns over, run by a pastor who liked microphones. Under the photo, family misunderstandings, false accusations, God's mercy. I bought milk and the flyer. I don't argue on sidewalks. I pulled my box from the hall closet, state, rubber-banded tight, and drove to the county building. The clerk's office keeps a copier that eats dimes and spits truth. Certified copies, indictment, lab report, verdict, forfeiture order, protective orders, chain of custody log. I wrote the case number in block letters on the flyer across his chin and slid everything into a manila envelope labeled church. Next stop was the notary at the credit union. I typed a single-page affidavit. Date, time, docket, list of documents attached. Swore it, stamped it, made 2 sets. Then I called the pastor's office. "Ma'am, the Lord," the assistant started. "Save the sermon," I said. "You're advertising a convicted felon as a wronged man. I'm delivering certified records at 4. If you host him, expect a stack of complaints to your insurer by noon tomorrow." Silence. "We'll review." At 4, I sat in a church office that smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner. The pastor read page 2, hit the lab language, and quit blinking. "We can't police every story," he tried. "You can police the ones you platform," I said, tapping the receipt from the vet supply house with Clyde's signature. I left the envelope and walked out. The event page vanished that night. The update blamed scheduling. That stirred other mud. A cousin I hadn't seen since grade school posted a fundraiser. "Help clear our uncle's name." His pitch used my childhood photo without permission. I didn't write a comment war. I filed an identity misuse report with the platform, mailed the host a stern letter with a docket list, and CC'd the county attorney. The page went dark in 24 hours. Then the podcasters sniffed. They love a twist. One emailed, "Would you like to share your truth?" He meant, "Would you feed my clicks?" I mailed 3 pages: orders, lab report, receipt. He replied with, "We're pursuing alternative angles." Translation: facts don't sell as fast as fog. All that would have satisfied me, but one more thread needed pulling. Rumor said the vet who'd sold Clyde those bottles back then had moved on. I drove to Cody on a Wednesday, pulled microfilm at the paper, and scanned the legal notices. License surrendered, consent order, a footnote that her partner started a new outfit under a new LLC 2 counties over. People forget that old papers still talk. I called the state board's number on the consent order. "You have a new clinic with a principal who used to share a bench with a sanctioned seller," I said, reading the LLC record number. "Maybe check inventories against buyer lists from the 90s. Ma'am, we can't discuss. You don't need to discuss. You need to audit." 2 months later, a small article ran, "Clinic fined for record-keeping violations." No names in the headline, but the board site posted the PDF. Boxes checked, inventory reconciled, doors kept honest. Good. Family drama came next. Aunt Lorna, the one who always said, "Men have needs," like it was weather, mailed a letter with a church brochure tucked inside. "He died in grace," she wrote. "You could let it rest." I photocopied her note, stapled it behind the property list corrections sent. Photo, woman, edges worn, and scribbled a line. "He kept Mom's picture. I don't rest a story. I file it." I slid it into revisions and moved on. Not everything was defense. Some of it was offense, teaching. The library director asked if I'd do a talk on navigating systems. I said I'd do a clinic, not a memoir. We set chairs, brewed percolator coffee, put pens and index cards on each seat, and printed a 1-page sheet. Clerk's window numbers. How to request certified copies. What chain of custody stickers look like. Where to stand when you need to be seen. Phrases that move paper. "I am requesting." "Please stamp received." "Whose name belongs on this line?" I brought a clean jar and a strip of masking tape. Wrote date and initials with a fat marker. Set it down. "This saved me more than talking ever did," I said. "Paper outruns rumor." A girl in a hoodie leaned forward. "What if the person rewriting the story is family?" "Same rules," I said. "Don't fight at the dinner table. File. When they go public, you go certified." A retired deputy raised his hand. "What about danger right now?" "Lights, doors, neighbors," I said. "Phones charge by the door, shoes by the bed. Drill it." Word gets around. After the clinic, a school counselor asked me to talk to her staff. We walked through mandatory reporting times, what qualifies, where forms disappear, how to mark a page so it can't. I showed them how to write a 3-sentence note. Date, observation, action taken. Not feelings. Facts. One more mess landed on my porch before summer broke. A local AM station ran call-in hours. A man used a fake name to claim the girl lied, called Ruth a bitter widow, said the lab got bribed. I called the station manager. "You're airing defamation wrapped in hymn music," I said. "Pull the segment. Read a correction. Or I'll file complaints with the FCC and your advertisers with copies of the court record." He huffed. Next morning, they read a correction. It wasn't poetry, but it was on air and it was permanent. If you're keeping score for revenge, here's all I have. A flyer pulled, a fundraiser closed, a clinic fined, a correction read, 24 people taught how to work a counter. No fireworks, just 1,000 paper cuts to the lie. People assume age softens you. It mostly clarifies. My porch has a nail where the dog's leash used to hang, and a hook for a tote that holds what I need when a storm hits. Copies, stamps, pens, envelopes, list of numbers, a spare charger, and a folded index card that says, if it's urgent, write it. If it's dangerous, leave. If it's public, certify. If it's over, archive. That's how I cut stories back to size. That's how a glass of sleep tonic turned into exhibits and orders, and how exhibits and orders kept turning back the tide whenever somebody tried to sell a prettier version. The river keeps moving. So do I. Part 3. The next storm didn't come from my past. It knocked on my screen door wearing a school hoodie and a problem that wasn't homework. Name was Mara Ortiz, 16, hands steady, eyes taking measurements. "You're the lady with the papers," she said. "My mom's got a boyfriend who makes sleep tea. She wakes up sick. Money's missing. He says she's forgetful. Same playbook, new decade." I didn't flinch. I set coffee, slid a pen and index card across. Dates, times, what changes hands, receipts if you've got them. She laid out a month of withdrawals, always after 9 p.m., always at the same ATM by the feed store. Mom, Elena, had signed a power of attorney at a notary table inside a corner tax shop. The boyfriend, Dale, kept the original. "He says it's for bills," Mara said. "He calls himself my stepdad. They're not married." We built a plan you could run with a stopwatch. Step 1. Collect without talking. I gave her 3 freezer bags and masking tape. Label, date, time, what, who poured. She took 2 home, tea dregs and the packet he used. I kept 1 for a control. We met at the library the next afternoon. The packets Dale had brought were Herbal Calm Blend, but the dregs fluoresced wrong under a cheap UV wand I keep for bad ink. Not proof, a nudge. Step 2. Copy the paper he waves. We couldn't ask Dale for the POA without a fight, so we started at the recorder. The clerk pulled the scanned image. Notarized last Thursday, by Pam's Tax and Title. I looked at the signature. The notary stamp expired in April. I pointed. "Make me a certified copy," I said. The clerk's eyebrows went up. "We see that sometimes." Step 3. Daylight. I called Adult Protective Services and gave the facts in a straight line. Possible undue influence, drugging suspected, invalid notary stamp, withdrawals off pattern, minor in the home, school counselor looped. Then I phoned Nurse Vaughn. "Need a screen if we can catch a window." She said, "Bring a labeled sample, and Mom if possible." Getting Elena out of the house clean was the hinge. We used a delivery driver. Javier from the taqueria owed me 2 favors and owns a bright red apron. At 7 sharp, he rang their bell with a bogus order for 2 burritos, cash only. Dale argued they hadn't ordered. Javier kept smiling. While the door scene played, Mara texted me, "Go," and I slipped down their side yard, tapped the kitchen window. Elena opened it, confused but upright. "Free blood pressure checks at the clinic tonight," I said, showing her a badge I don't carry. Just a library card and a smile that looks official under a knit cap. "Your name's on the list." We hustled her to Vaughn. Blood, urine, vitals. Vaughn capped and sealed with chain numbers that match my index cards. "Benzo derivative," she said after the quick test ticked. "We'll send to the lab." She wrote, "Suspected chemical restraint," in the note line. Words matter. Back at the house, APS and a deputy knocked. "Welfare check," they said. Dale tried charm, then bluster. Then the power of attorney flourish. The deputy read the notary date, dialed the recorder, and raised an eyebrow you could hang a hat on. "Sir, this paper's invalid. Step aside." APS walked the kitchen. They found a tin of loose-leaf herbal calm that smelled like chamomile sitting beside a pill crusher and a bottle of unmarked tablets. Photos, baggies, labels. They didn't cuff Dale. This town prefers tidy. But he left with a yellow copy of an emergency exclusion order and a warning not to return. We set Elena at my table with crackers and water. She rubbed her temples like they were dimmer switches. "He said the tea helped me rest," she muttered. "It helped him shop," I said, laying out the ATM printouts and the recorder's certified sheet. "Here's how we undo it. Morning, bank, first window, not the driveway." I brought Elena, her ID, and a typed statement. "I revoke any power of attorney purportedly executed on date. Signature coerced. Notary stamp expired." The branch manager read every line. "We'll freeze external transfers," she said, stamping received across the top. I asked for camera pulls on the ATM nights. She said counsel would review. She gave Elena a new debit card and an account watch. "And change your PIN somewhere only you can see," I told her, pointing to the clerk's pen. "Never use the counter pad." Next stop, Judge Merrick's bench, now manned by his successor, a younger woman with the same sunburned ears. We filed for a temporary protection order for Elena and a stay away for Mara's school. I stapled the lab note, the notary defect, APS report number, and the bank's receipt. "Unsafe acts, financial exploitation, chemical sedation," I said. The judge signed. People think court takes months. Sometimes it takes a good packet in 10 minutes. Dale tested the order within 48 hours. He showed at Elena's work with flowers and a speech. The manager called me, then the police. The officer served Dale in the lobby and walked him to the sidewalk. Dale called Mara from a burner to say she'd regret this. Wrong audience. We had already looped the school resource officer. She put a desk by Mara's locker for a week and parked her squad where Dale could see it from the road. Presence counts. Lab confirmed what Vaughn suspected. Zolpidem plus a benzo, crushed and brewed. County attorney filed misdemeanor theft and felony administering a substance. More important, APS pushed the financial part, petitioned to void the POA on the record, and tagged the notary shop for the state board. Pam's tax and title took their sign down by the next Tuesday. Elena didn't get a movie ending. She got a binder. We filled it. Pay stubs, the bank's fraud affidavit, copies of orders, a list of numbers, APS, victim advocate, school SRO, courthouse clerk. We put the binder on her fridge with a magnet shaped like a trout. "When he calls, don't argue," I said. "Say, according to order, sure, and hang up." She nodded. Mara smiled for the first time in my kitchen. Before the month ended, Elena moved 2 streets over into an upstairs unit with a lock that clicks right. Mara switched to the late bus for volleyball. The SRO scheduled a patrol route that looks like luck. The county attorney offered Dale a plea with probation and no contact. He puffed, then signed when he saw the lab report and the bank video. The hat, the jacket, the timestamps. Paper beats speeches. I don't mentor for free. I charge the cost of 2 pens and a ream of paper. Payment due as practice. Mara paid by starting a forms club at school. Every Thursday, 3 kids sit in the counselor's office and learn how to fill what grown-ups hide behind. Job apps, fee waivers, Protection petitions. I spent one lunch showing them how to ask for camera footage without getting bounced. Use the phrase, preserve immediately, I said. Make them write it down while you watch. If you need the skinny from this round, here it is. Same index card, new lines. If a signature controls money or medicine, confirm the notary's stamp date. Labels and lids live on tape with your initials. Photograph the poor. Don't meet abusers at doors. Meet clerks at counters. Freeze first, argue later. Banks respect stamped revocations. A protection order without a patrol schedule is a wish. Pair it with roots. The river out back runs low in August. You can step rock to rock without getting wet. On dry evenings, Mara jogs by with friends. Elena texts photos of her plants and receipts for a savings account that finally grows. When the phone rings late, it's usually a kid asking what line to stand in. I answer, pull a fresh card, and say, write the date. We'll move the mountain the slow way. Part 4. The call came from across the alley. He's taking my keys. I looked out and saw Mr. Harlan Rusk, Korea vet, fixes radios for beer money, on his porch in socks, while a man in khakis loaded a banker's box into a sedan. The khakis introduced himself as Brent from Frontier Care Solutions, court-appointed guardian. Harlan's niece in Cheyenne had signed a referral, he said. Unsafe to remain alone. We're moving him to a facility and liquidating assets to fund care. He flashed a photocopy with a stamp and a signature you could barely read. I asked the only question that matters first. What's the cause number? He blinked. I copied it with a golf pencil onto my palm. Harlan mouthed, "Help." I nodded once. This wasn't my first rodeo with fast-track guardianship. It runs on speed and silence. You beat it with daylight and deadlines. Step 1. Clerk's counter, not the website. I walked to district court, handed the cause number to Sherry, who's been stamping papers since disco. She slid me the file on the turntable. Petition. Emergency guardianship, signed yesterday, alleging wandering, unsafe stove, bank confusion. Exhibit A, a capacity letter from Dr. B. Kell. I checked the date. Last year. Not current. Exhibit B, 3 photos of an overboiled pot. The judge had inked a temporary order, ex parte for 72 hours. Hearing set for Friday. Today was Wednesday. They were using the window to strip the house before anyone objected. Step 2. Capacity now. I called Nurse Vaughn. Need a same-day cognitive screen on site, I said. Bring the standardized form with the scoring boxes, not the clinic note. She grabbed her bag and met me at Harlan's. He answered his door without prompting, named the date, the president, and the street, counted backwards by sevens with only one stumble, copied a clock face with hands at 10:50, and remembered 3 words after 5 minutes. Vaughn wrote scores, signed, and added the magic line. Findings inconsistent with global incapacity. Risks addressable with supports. Chain of custody? Not needed. This wasn't a drug test. We needed clarity, not chemistry. Step 3. Money trail. I phoned the credit union manager who knows me by my notebooks. Flag withdrawals over $500 from Mr. Rusk pending a Friday hearing. He's got an emergency order against him he intends to contest. She put a note in the system and promised callbacks on suspicious activity. And can you print 6 months of statements for court? I asked. He'll sign the request when I bring him by. Meanwhile, Brent came back with a locksmith. I stood on the stoop. There's a hearing Friday, I said, handing him a copy of the notice I'd pulled from the file. Your authority expires then, unless extended. Any sale or removal before judicial review could be contempt. He smirked and started toward the deadbolt. I dialed dispatch on speaker. "This is a civil matter," the locksmith muttered, already inserting tools. "Dispatch. We have a temporary guardianship being used to change locks prior to inventory and before the ward has counsel. Request a unit to keep the peace," I said. Names, address, cause number. A patrol car rolled up 10 minutes later. The officer asked for the order. Brent handed over the photocopy. The officer radioed the court for verification and then said the words I like. "No property leaves without a logged inventory signed by both parties." The locksmith packed up. We scheduled an inventory slot with photos for the next afternoon. I wrote it on my index card and made Brent initial next to it. Paper beats bluster. Harlan needed a lawyer who knew elder law and didn't bill a barn for it. I called Ruth's old contact list and found a bulldog named Candace Pike 2 towns over. She took one look at the file and said, "They forum shopped the order, used stale capacity, and didn't notify required kin. We'll move to dissolve." She drafted an objection with exhibits: Vaughn's fresh screen, the credit union's flags, a letter from Harlan's VA doc confirming meds set out weekly, no wandering recorded. We added a proposed alternative: limited powers for bill pay only, with Harlan's niece as monitor and a public guardian off the case entirely. Thursday, we ran an inventory with the officer watching. We photographed each room. Harlan pointed to a cigar box high on a shelf. Inside, war ribbons, his discharge paper, and an envelope labeled taxes with receipts. Frontier's guy wanted to cart off the ham radio rig. "Medical hazard," he claimed. I handed the officer a printout. Value under small estate limit. Not contraband. The rig stayed. Friday, the hearing room smelled like old varnish and coffee. I sat behind Harlan with Candace at counsel table. Frontier sent a different suit, Brenda this time, with a neat bun and a stack of glossy brochures. She repeated the script: emergency, unsafe, needs placement. The judge asked about notice. She said they'd called a friend. The number belonged to the niece's ex. Candace stood and worked in straight lines. Exhibit 1, capacity screen dated yesterday, scored and signed. Exhibit 2, VA letter. Exhibit 3, credit union letter and statements showing no unusual activity except a $1,200 cash withdrawal the day the petition was filed, made by petitioner's agent under the emergency order. The judge's eyebrows climbed. Candace continued. Exhibit 4, required kin, niece, was not served. Exhibit 5, petitioner's doctor letter is a year old and refers to a urinary tract infection. She let that hang. The judge turned to Nurse Vaughn. "Any reason this man can't remain at home with supports?" Vaughn answered clean. "None I can't address with a med box, a smoke alarm with a spoken voice, and a neighbor check." Brenda tried one more angle: photos of the boiled pot, the confused bank teller. I raised my hand. The judge let me speak as a lay witness. "I was present when Mr. Rusk set his stove timer, labeled his breakers, and listed his meds. He can name his doctor and his bank. I also requested the teller's log. The confusion day was when Frontier's agent attempted to open a joint account under the emergency order. I slid the teller's note across. Candace had subpoenaed it at dawn." The judge lifted the gavel and set it down without striking. Emergency guardianship dissolved. Petition denied. Frontier is ordered to return keys and any property collected. Limited financial conservatorship granted to Mr. Rusk's niece, subject to quarterly reports. Frontier is sanctioned for misuse of ex parte relief and referred to the AG for review. He looked at me. Ms. Porter, thank you for the community legwork. Next time, file an affidavit instead of speaking from the gallery. I smiled. Yes, Your Honor. I'll bring the paper. Outside, the khakis sulked. Harlan took his keys back and shook the officer's hand. He didn't hug me. Men like him aren't built for it. He said, "Coffee? That's better than a medal." We spent the afternoon installing the kind of supports that beat institutions. Big print med list on the fridge, lockbox for checkbook, phone programmed with 3 numbers and labels. Niece, VA, Lila. I set a stove timer to bark instead of beep. He laughed. Now that'll wake a bear. Frontier didn't fold quietly. They sent a letter demanding reasonable compensation for efforts. Candace replied with 1 line. Denied. See sanctions order. We copied the AG. Silence followed. You want the lesson card? Add these lines. Emergency guardianships expire fast. Use that window to get a fresh capacity screen. Verify exhibits. Old letters and stale photos are red flags. Demand inventories with signatures. No bags leave without a log. Offer a narrower alternative. Limited powers plus supports. Judges like options. File. Don't just talk. Objections with exhibits beat speeches every time. Harlan's porch light now clicks on at dusk like a heartbeat. Tuesdays he brings over a radio he can't quite tune, and we fix it with coffee and pliers. Some evenings I hear his timer barking through the alley, and I grin. That sound means a man stayed in his house because we ran the drill. Dates, papers, counters, judge. Keep it dull. Keep it undeniable. Part 5. Hail hit Elk Ridge like a bag of ball bearings. By dusk, the town was a patchwork of blue tarps and busted skylights. At 9 sharp, a white pickup rolled slow down our street. Magnetic signs, out-of-state plate, young man in a branded vest, knocking like he owned the porches. High Plains Restoration, he said to my neighbor Joe, a nurse with 2 kids and a roof like a colander. Insurance won't cover acts of God without a licensed contractor's estimate. Sign here, we'll tarp tonight, full roof next week, 10% deposit. By noon, he'd harvested checks from 6 houses, mine not included. I don't write to strangers with clipboards. At 3, I saw no tarps, just receipts and promises. At 5, Mr. Walt from the VFW came over pale. They filed a lien on my place. I only gave a deposit. Door-to-door storm chasers run on speed. You beat them with paper and the clock. Step 1. Verify. I opened my drawer of cards and called the state contractor board. High Plains Restoration wasn't licensed here. Their license number belonged to a plumber in Rock Springs. Their bond? Expired last year in another state. Insurance certificate? The agent listed had never heard of them. Step 2. Freeze the bleed. I told Joe and Walt to photograph every shingle and write the timeline. Who, when, how much, what was promised. We scanned the contracts. Each had a door-to-door header with a blank rescission box. That's our lever. State cooling off law. 3 business days to cancel sales made anywhere that isn't the seller's permanent place of business. I printed the statute and clipped it to each contract. Step 3. Find the liens. We walked to the clerk and recorder. Sherry slid the index across the counter. 3 mechanics' liens had hit already. Same notary, same form, sloppy legal descriptions. I checked the acknowledgement. The notary stamp expired last month. Sherry lifted an eyebrow. Fraudulent notarization is a misdemeanor and wrecks a lien, she said, reaching for her red tab stickers. Step 4. Money trail. I called the credit union manager. Flag checks to High Plains. If they haven't cleared, stop payment. Joe's and Walt's were still pending. We filled the forms. If they cleared, I said, we dispute as a deceptive home solicitation. The vest kid, name badge said Cade, reappeared at dusk with 2 more contracts. I was waiting on Joe's porch with my index card and the deputy who lives 3 doors down when he's off duty. Cade, I said, this is your notice of cancellation under Prover. I read the line and handed him a copy stamped, received with today's date and time. You're also on notice that your lien filings use an expired notary. Any attempt to record more will be referred to the AG and the district attorney with exhibits. He tried charm first. Ma'am, we're just trying to help folks. I pointed to the roofs. Where are the tarps? He didn't answer. The deputy asked for his driver's license. Out of state. I gave Cade a demand letter. Refund within 3 business days, release of liens within 5, else suit under the Consumer Protection Act, treble damages, fees. He signed for receipt with a shaky pen. While we waited for his bosses to make up their minds, we moved on 2 more fronts. Insurance. I called adjusters directly. Don't let a fake contractor bottleneck coverage, I said. Write estimates for like-kind replacement and schedule a vetted local crew. I gave them Marla Kincaid's number, roofing license, bond current, and a file drawer of permits to her name. They slotted inspections for morning. Law. Candace Pike, the bulldog from the guardianship case, took this one too. She filed emergency petitions to expunge fraudulent liens and served High Plains through their registered agent, a P.O. box in Cheyenne shared by 6 other shells. She attached exhibits, expired notary stamp, lack of license, and affidavits from every porch they'd visited. She also sent complaints to the AG and the Secretary of State, CC'd the county attorney, and, this matters, CC'd the insurance fraud unit. Scammers hate daylight with copies. High Plains blinked. The next afternoon, Kate arrived with a supervisor in mirrored sunglasses and 2 cashier's checks. We counted dollars in the kitchen under the deputy's eyes. Lien releases? I asked. Sunglasses pushed a stack across the table. Wrong form. I slid them back. Use the statutory release and fill the legal descriptions exactly as filed. We'll walk them to the recorder together. We did. Sherry stamped, "Release recorded." I photographed each receipt and texted it to Candace and the credit union. Paper travels faster than talk. AG called that evening. We've got similar complaints statewide, the investigator said. Your packet is the cleanest. They opened a case. The Secretary of State suspended High Plains authority to do business pending hearing. The notary? Cited. The plumber whose number they stole? Thanked me for the heads up and changed his website font to something legible. Marla's crew showed Monday at sunup. Permits printed, harnesses clicked, nails in tidy lines. She used the carrier's scope, sent supplements for decking where hail punched through, and finished Walt's house by Thursday. Joe's kids drew chalk whales on the driveway and watched shingles slide in neat bundles. A job done right has rhythm. Even children know. High Plains tried one last play. A letter demanding restocking fees and mobilization costs. Candace replied with exactly 12 words. Denied. Further contact goes to counsel. See Parv and sanctions forthcoming. Then she filed for fees. The judge granted them, added a fine for fraudulent filings, and referred the outfit to the DA. A month later, the AG announced a consent order, restitution, ban from soliciting in Wyoming for 5 years, and a bond posted if they ever return. Cade's pickup hasn't rolled our street since. You want the card? Add this. After storms, never signed same day. Vet license, bond, insurance. Door-to-door sales. Cooling off rights. Cancel in writing, time-stamped. Mechanics liens require real work, proper notice, valid notarization. Check all 3. Insurers don't need a scammer to pay a legitimate claim. Call the adjuster. Bring a licensed local. File complaints in bundles. AG, Secretary of State, Recorder, DA. CC everyone. Attach exhibits. Paper makes patterns. At sunset, my block lost its tarps. Walt sits under a new ridge vent listening to ball games. Joe taped her refund stub inside a kitchen cabinet like a trophy. When thunder rumbles now, I don't tighten. We ran the drill. Names, numbers, forms, stamps. Keep it dull. Keep it undeniable. That's how you chase off wolves in khaki. Ledger first, weather second. Part 6. Snow came early and mean. I was sorting tax receipts when the county digitizer, Nora with the coffee thermos, called from records. Lila, you ever want to see 56 coroner logs? We're boxing the basement. Mold and miracles down here. I put on my wool coat and walked to the courthouse. Nora slid a ledger across the table with gloved hands. Brown ink, tidy columns, winter of my mother's death. Entry line for Faye Porter. Pneumonia, home care, no autopsy. Physician, C. Dalton. A second pencil note ghosted underneath. Erased, but not gone. Consider talks. Then scratch marks. Who was Dalton? I asked. Doc, who later lost his license, Nora said. Wrote scripts, like grocery lists. Died in 62. I took a photo, then a breath. I've lived fine without answers, but the ledger had opened its mouth. If Clyde doctored my milk, why not hers? You don't chase ghosts with hunches. You build a paper bridge. First stop. Death certificate amendment procedure. Vital Records hides the rules behind 3 clicks and a bad PDF. I printed the form, highlighted the lines about new evidence, and wrote a bullet list. Ledger note. Doctor discipline. Known administration of sedatives to a minor, me. Contemporaneous purchase receipts. I stapled copies, numbered each page, and mailed it certified. Second, Dr. Dalton. I requested his board file from the state archives. They sent a thin box. Complaints, hearings, a surrender letter. 1 page mattered. He'd been warned in 55 for dispensing veterinary sedatives without record. Same family of drug that showed in my case. I added it to the packet. Third, coroner authority. Our modern coroner is Kent Lathrop. Steady. No taste for drama. I set an appointment, slid the ledger photo and board docs across his desk. I'm not asking for a shovel, I said. I'm asking for a review. He read, drummed his fingers, and said, if vital amends cause to undetermined, I can reopen administratively. No exhumation unless a county judge signs off. Fourth, judge. Not Merrick. He's gone. We've got Judge Breen now, a runner with soft shoes and a hard pen. I drafted a petition for limited investigative authority, attached exhibits, and asked Candace to file it. You sure? She said. This will kick dust. Dust was always there, I said. I'm just tracing footprints. Word leaks in small towns the way steam finds cracks. A local blogger, pseudonym Coyote something, posted a tease. Elk Ridge grandma digs up old scandal? Phone lit up. I shut it off and kept moving. Vital records blinked first. A letter arrived on blue paper. Cause of death amended from pneumonia to undetermined pending further information. Basis, new documentary evidence. Coroner Lathrop reopened the file. Judge Breen signed the limited order. Review medical records, interview surviving witnesses, test retained materials, if any exist. That last clause was the key. Mid-century coroners kept stomach jars sometimes. Morbid libraries. Nora and Kent went spelunking in the courthouse basement. I waited upstairs with a thermos like a nervous ant. An hour later, Kent came up with a dust-coated wooden crate and a look that said he'd found a time capsule. Inside, glass vials with waxed paper labels, brittle but legible. One said, F. Porter, stomach contents, 2/14/56. The jar was half evaporated but sealed. I sat down. Chain of custody started then and there. Photos, signatures, evidence tape. Kent called the state lab. Rush? The tech asked. Rush, he said. They couriered it in a padded cooler like we were shipping peaches. While chemistry worked, I tracked down the 2 remaining people who'd been in our house that winter. Pastor Reeves's widow, Marnie, and Mrs. Holt from the next ranch. Marnie remembered praying in a cold bedroom, a glass on the nightstand that smelled like sweet nail polish. Mrs. Holt remembered my father insisting no doctor be called until after supper. I took affidavits in their kitchens, dated and signed. 10 days later, the lab report landed like a hammer. Residue analysis suggests presence of chloral hydrate and ethanol, consistent with sedative co-administration known to depress respiration. Levels cannot be quantified due to evaporation. Conclusion qualitative. Not a headline, but a spine. Chloral was the old knockout drops. Veterinary sedatives were cousins. Dalton had dispensed both. Candace filed the report under seal with Breen, attached affidavits, asked for a finding. Death inconsistent with natural pneumonia, absent further clinical evidence. Breen scheduled a hearing. No cameras. Kent testified cleanly. The lab tech spoke on video. I said 12 more sentences and kept my voice on rails. My father later purchased and administered sedatives. There is documentary overlap. We ask the record reflect doubt. Breen took 2 days, then entered a 4-page order. The evidentiary standard for criminal adjudication cannot be met. However, the civil record may and should reflect when doubt is supported. The court finds the manner of death for Faye Porter is amended to undetermined, sedative involvement suspected. He forwarded a copy to Vital Records and the Historical Society. I didn't pop a cork. I walked to the cemetery with a brush and cleared the stone, then took a small brass plate I'd had made at the hardware store. Record set straight, 2025. I affixed it to the back with epoxy. No speeches, just a plate. The blogger published anyway. Big fonts, wrong dates, invented quotes. I sent a 2-paragraph correction with exhibits and a line at the end. Permission granted to reproduce the order and lab report in full. All other uses denied. He posted the documents and his comments shrank to nothing. Paper beats gossip twice. The revenge part? It isn't fire. It's an index card in a file drawer titled, Mother Closed. It's a line in the state database that won't say pneumonia again. It's girls in this county learning the word chloral in a context that saves them time later. It's our coroner revising his intake forms to require automatic talks on home deaths without a treating physician. Systems move when you nudge them with proof. Here's your card for cold cases. Start with the ledger, certificates, coroner logs, board files. Scan, date, paginate. Amend the record first. Ask the coroner for administrative reopening on paper. Chain of custody like it's gold. Photos, seals, signatures, courier. Witness's age. Get affidavits now. Location, smell, words said. Ask the court for what it can grant. Findings that change records, not headlines. At dusk, Elk Ridge turned lavender. I brewed percolator coffee and filed Breen's order behind the lab report. My pantry jars stayed empty, clean, their lids set straight. Mom's photograph sits above my desk. She looks left of the camera, like she saw a future she couldn't reach. I can't hand it back to her, but I can hand forward the rule. When truth is late, make it documented. Then, let the river carry the rest. Part 7. January brought thaw and trouble. A junior from the high school, Tess Moreno, track kid with a cracked knuckle, knocked at dusk with a paper sack. My mom's boyfriend sells calm syrup, she said. He pours it for me when mom's on nights. I wake up foggy and miss hours. She set the sack on my table. Inside, a mason jar with a twine tag, night nectar, honey and herbs. I don't do panic. I do steps. I put on latex gloves, wrote the date across the lid with a Sharpie, and slid the jar into one of my empty pantry quarts. Who's the boyfriend? I asked. Marshall Pike. Runs a pop-up booth at farmers markets. Says he learned herbalism online. We started a list. Where he sells, who's bought, what the labels claim. I called Alma Kessler. We're not raiding a gingerbread stand, she said, but if it's misbranded or scheduled, we can move. I rang Kent at the coroner's office. He tossed me 3 rapid test strips used in ERs for sedative screens. Not proof, he said, but a compass. Strip 1 blinked positive for chloral cousins. There's your compass. Chain of custody, or it didn't happen. I phoned Candace and asked her to meet us at the station with a seal kit. We photographed the jar, sealed it, filled out the evidence log, and Alma couriered it to the state lab. Then we set bait. Tess said Marshall never charged her, kept it in the family, but he sold bottles at the Elk Ridge Winter Market in the Armory on Saturdays. Claims it's for anxious sleeping and completely legal, Tess said. Misbranding statutes love phrases like that. We built a clean buy. Deputy Rios's wife, who nobody in town links to the sheriff's office, took cash and a tote. I gave her a list of questions that fit on an index card. What herbs? Any alcohol? Any warnings? Age limits? She came back with 2 bottles, receipts printed off a phone, and a sales spiel recorded on her watch. No side effects, safe for kids, knocks you out nice. The lab report arrived midweek. Chloral hydrate confirmed, ethanol high enough to mask the taste, trace diphenhydramine. Translation: a knockout cocktail in a homespun jar. Alma got a warrant for product and records, plus a board of pharmacy consult. Judge Breen signed it the same afternoon with a note in the margin. Keep this tidy. Saturday, we went shopping. Alma took plain clothes, brown jacket, ball cap, 2 deputies, and a health department inspector. I stood in the armory lobby with coffee for whoever needed to steady their hands. They approached the booth like customers, asked the questions on my card, then flipped badges. The inspector read labels into his phone. Claims therapeutic effects, lacks drug facts panel, no lot numbers, no distributor name, violations stacked. Rios popped the tablecloth, bagged jars by batch, photographed the Venmo screen with prices, and served Marshall with the warrant for backstock. He tried folksy. Why make trouble? It's just herbs. Alma held up the state lab report. This is chloral hydrate. You've been dosing minors. Hands on the table, Marshall. He went white, then mean. The cuffs clicked. The market kept humming around the small circle of quiet. We weren't done. Sellers like Marshall keep a second stash. Tess had seen him pull bottles from a bus station locker once. We checked lockers with the transit manager. 2 were sticky with honey residue. Key in his pocket matched the third. Inside, cash bands, a ledger with first names, and a brown bottle with pharmacy stamps sanded off. We signed and bagged. The county attorney filed charges that afternoon. Distribution of a legend drug, child endangerment, misbranding, practicing pharmacy without a license. Easy counts, hard edges. The Board of Pharmacy sent a cease and desist to every market coordinator in 3 counties with Marshall's label sheet attached. The health department drafted a flyer. How to spot illegal tonics, lot numbers, ingredient lists, manufacturer info, age warnings. I corrected 3 commas and sent it to print. Tess moved in with her aunt for 90 days under an emergency order. Judge Breen required her mother to attend a safety class before reunification. I wrote the aunt 3 lines on a card. Lock cabinet, separate phone plan. Call Alma directly if Pike's folks circle. At arraignment, Marshall's lawyer tried a speech about traditional remedies and grandmother wisdom. The county attorney slid across photos of the jar, the lab report, the watch recording, and the bus station ledger with a column labeled Tess, 32 Oz, no charge. Judge Breen raised an eyebrow and set bail high. We held a town session in the Armory the next week. Kent brought visual aids, pictures of proper labels and of Marshall's jars. Alma explained the line between herbal tea and controlled sedatives. I walked folks through a simple playbook. No drama, just steps. Photograph the product before anyone opens it. Save sales receipts, bag the item, write the date across the lid. Don't dump, don't drink, don't perform backyard science. Call health, then sheriff. Ask for a case number. Keep a copy of every paper that crosses your hand. An old rancher raised a hand. Isn't this overkill? No, I said. It's a record. Records are how you win without yelling. 2 days later, the blogger tried a rewrite. Beloved vendor railroaded by busybodies. I emailed a packet, warrant, lab report, docket, plus a 1-sentence license from me to post them in full. He pivoted to a bake sale instead. Paper beats rumor. 3rd time running. Spring edged in. Tess returned to track. Meaner in the best way. Her mother switched shifts and swapped boyfriends for a budget planner. Market coordinators posted signs. No unlabeled remedies. The bus station swapped all the locker locks. Small moves, but they hold. That evening, I sat on my porch, oiled the chain on the screen door so it wouldn't squeal, and updated my files. I slid Pike closed behind Mother closed. The pantry jars stayed empty, lids straight. People tell me revenge should taste like fire. Mine tastes like stamped forms and a town that learned a new habit. If you need your own kit, here's the last card I'll hand you. Date your lid before you do anything else. Get a case number first, opinions last. Use names, not descriptions. Who signed? Who tested? Who filed? Ask for orders that change systems, flyers, protocols, Forms. When it's over, file it, label it, move on. I'm still 2 blocks off Main, south side of the duplex. If you come by with a jar you don't trust, or a story that needs paper, I'll set the percolator, pull a pen, and slide an index card across the table. We'll write the dates and move the mountain the slow way. Part 8. They asked me to cut a ribbon. I don't do ribbons. I do hinges that swing and doors that latch. Still, the library board printed a banner, Elk Ridge Records Room, and handed me big scissors with satin tails. I trimmed the tails with my pocket knife, snipped the tape, and waved folks inside. The room wasn't fancy. 2 steel file banks, a scanner the size of a calf, a laminator, and a counter tall enough to sign standing. Wall chart on the left. Chain of custody for civilians. Wall chart on the right. How to ask a judge for paper. We stocked free packets, index cards, Sharpies, tamper seals, an evidence bag you could use for a jar or a letter. Alma called it overbuilt. I called it overdue. We opened at noon. By 2, we'd logged a week's worth of trouble. A landlord who swapped locks without notice. A coach who kept missing injury reports. A nursing aide whose boss told her to white out a time card. I didn't sermon them. I slid forms, said, "Write the dates," and pointed to the scanner. People calmed when the light bar made its smooth pass. Machines don't raise voices. Around closing, a woman with a camera crew drifted in. Streaming outfit, polished hair, earnest smile. "Ms. Porter, we're doing a limited series," she said. "Healing narratives. We'd love your perspective. Very human, very raw." My perspective fits on paper. I handed her a packet instead. Indictment, lab, order, transfer logs. She scanned the pages, saw the signatures, and tucked her pitch back in her purse. "Could we get B-roll?" she tried. "You can film the wall charts," I said. "People need those more than my face." They took 5 minutes of laminated truth and left for coffee. We weren't done building. The school board adopted a 10-minute drill for health class. Label a pretend jar, list 3 neutral facts, role play a call to a clerk. The bus station replaced all locker cores and printed receipts with locker numbers. No more cash, no more shadows. The winter market wrote vendor rules in verbs. List, label, log. Small verbs, hold. I kept my own verbs. Walk, note, save. A county from 3 hours over called to borrow our charts. Alma mailed copies with blank lines for their names. Judge Breen retired. His last order set a standing docket hour for emergency filings. No more wandering hallway requests. Candace got a stipend and a second freezer, which she filled with casseroles labeled like evidence, date, contents, reheating time. People laugh. People also eat. One night a padded envelope slid under my door. No return address. Inside, a thin photograph. My mother on a porch step, head tipped, sunlight on her cheek. On the back, a line in an old hand. Fay, 1944, Grey Bull Fair. I checked for prints, then checked the postmark. Rollins. Prison town. Maybe a trustee found it when they boxed Clyde's things. Maybe a chaplain mailed it. I logged the envelope, scanned the photo, and filed both under family. Archive. You don't have to know the sender to keep the record. Spring snow melted fast that year. Tess, now 18, sharper than barbed wire, showed up with a binder and a key. "You said tools over talk," she said. So I cleaned the templates, added a QR link to statutes, and color-coded timelines. Also, the Armory wants a standing table for the records room booth. "Take the key," I said. "You'll run it when I can't." She didn't argue. She doesn't waste breath. Good habit. The last loose thread pulled itself. A podcast from nowhere tried to rehabilitate Marshall with an episode called Honey Misunderstood. Alma emailed the host 4 attachments and a link to the public portal Judge Breen set up. Every exhibit, every order. The feed posted a correction in 12 hours. No apology, just the words that matter. Updated with documents. I printed the post, highlighted the update line, and slid it into Pike. Closed. You only need 1 sentence to nail a lid. A grandson of Ruth's came through town with a flatbed of fence posts. He stopped by the library, hat in hand. Grandma used to say you could fix most things with a list and a meal, he said. Mom put up a marker for her at the river bend. Has your name on it too. I don't visit markers much. I visited that one. Cottonwoods, slow water, a flat stone with letters cut square. Ruth Calder. She wrote it down, and then she did it below. Smaller. Lila May Porter. She kept the ledger. I pressed my palm flat, then set a blank index card under the stone for whoever needed it next. Wind took nothing. That felt right. By summer, I'd handed off enough keys that my ring got light. Good. Systems should outlive their makers. On my porch, the chain still moved silent. Beans and flour on the shelf. One jar labeled AIR to remind me empty can be useful too. Folks ask for final advice like, there's a trick. There isn't. There's practice. Here's the last card I'll print before I hang up my laminator. Write the date before the story. Name the person before the title. Ask for a stamp before a speech. Save the first copy. Share the second. Leave a map for the next hand. If you need me, I'm 2 blocks off Main, South Unit, porch chair facing east. Knock once, clear. I'll put the percolator on, lay out a pen and a fresh card, and we'll do what works. No violins, no speeches. We'll list, stamp, file, and move the mountain the same way we always have. The slow way that stays put.